Hi, everybody, and welcome to the June Lymphedema Patient Roundtable hosted by LymphaPress. My name is Alexa Ercolano. I'm the Marketing and Communications Associate here at LymphaPress, as well as a primary lymphedema patient myself. And we are so pumped you're here with us tonight because this is a very special evening. June is Lipedema Awareness Month. So tonight we are spotlighting lipedema and lipolymphedema at the Lymphedema Roundtable with two special guests. So as everybody's logging on, let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from, and I'm going to introduce our lovely panel of ladies. So first we have Angela Jones, who's a lipolymphedema patient and health coach. We have Catherine Rosenberg, pediatric cancer survivor living with secondary lymphedema. She's an advocate and, I always say it, a math teacher, but it's summer break, so no math questions until the fall for Catherine. Then we have Karen Ashforth, our certified lymphedema therapist and fibrosis queen. Amanda Sobey, lymphedema patient, certified personal trainer and nutritionist, all the way up in Canada. We've got Sarah Bramblette, patient advocate living with lymphedema and lipedema. And we have Tamara Carroll, who's an advocate for lipedema awareness and also living with lipedema and lymphedema. So, some quick housekeeping before we get started. As always, you can pop your Q&A in the Q&A box, although because we have special guests tonight who'll be sharing their stories, we might not get to the Q&A this month, but so if we run out of time, we'll save it for next month, because we also have at the end of the evening around 8:45, Karen is going to be leading us in a wonderful grounding exercise. So we need to save some time for that. And gentle reminder also that we cannot give you personal medical advice. We're not your doctors, but we are your pals, and we're glad you're with us tonight. So we're gonna jump right in. So as mentioned at the top of the hour, it is Lipedema Awareness Month, and we're fortunate to have two women joining us at our virtual table to share their experiences living with both lymphedema and lipedema. And before I turn it over to the two of them, I wanted to talk real quick about lymphedema, lipedema, and lipolymphedema, the trio, and I'm going to pass the baton to the lovely Karen if she can kind of give us a brief definition on the three conditions. And in the meantime, I'm going to drop some resources in the chat for you to bookmark that will also be included in the replay email. So our little cheat sheet on swelling, Karen, take it away, please.
All right. So there is a lot more confusion than there needs to be about these different conditions. So lymphedema, as we are aware, is a condition of chronic swelling, and it can be caused by anything. And chronic is defined as over 3 months. So that's lymphedema. And lipedema, if you think of the word lipid, which means fat, lipedema is a condition where there is an abnormal growth of fat in the body in certain predictable areas, usually in the thighs, the buttocks, sometimes upper arms, and it can vary from person to person. Usually this happens most often in women, by the way, because there appears to be a hormonal connection, although there's a very, very few rare men that have this. But I'm gonna talk mostly to women because that's the majority of the people that have lipedema. And lipedema is different from swelling, although you can have both, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But lipedema is a condition where the body produces this fat that is not like normal body fat. It has differences in circulation and innervation, and it's generally very, very painful and sensitive to touch. There can be nodules. It can be very difficult to deal with, and a lot of lymphedema therapists can treat lipedema, but not all of them know about it. So if you are tuning in and you think you might have lipedema, we're going to drop a bunch of resources for you in the chat. And my go-to is the Lipedema Foundation, because they have all kinds of amazing educational resources for patients that patients can take to their doctors to educate doctors, because a lot of doctors they've heard of lymphedema. Now we're starting to get more awareness, but lipedema still doesn't have much awareness. So I've just kind of hit the real high points. And now I'm going to talk about lympholipedema. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's where a woman has lipedema, but swelling at the same time. And I want to make it clear that lipedema is not exclusively about swelling, that lipedema is about the abnormal fat. But a lot of women with lipedema do also have swelling. And initially, I think that a lot of people felt that the swelling happened towards the later stages of lipedema, and that's just simply not true. We now know that even women with stage 1 can experience swelling. So I think it's important to address each issue in the equation if you are a woman that has both conditions, because we're going to be doing some similar things, but also some different things. And I think I'm going to stop it right here because I could talk all night on this, but I know we have some great guests and I'm really excited to hear from them. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Alexa, and I will join you again at the end and maybe in the middle if there's questions.
Thank you so much, Karen. We can always count on you for the nice little definitions and roundups, and you explain things so clearly, and we appreciate you for that. So someone asked already, if we're going to be talking about lymphedema tonight, we're going to be focusing on lipolymphedema and lipedema for Lipedema Awareness Month. So there will be some lymphedema stuff woven in there, and a lot of it is transferable to all three when it comes to the mental health and advocating for yourself and all of that. So you're welcome to hang on with us tonight, or you can catch the replay later and skip around to the bits that resonate with you. But we're going to jump in with our guests, and I wanted to first give it over to Tamara because I just met her for the first time over the phone last week, and she was so lovely, and she said something that really stuck with me, which is that, well, let me back up. She was recently diagnosed with lipedema and lymphedema at the same time at 64 years old. And so she's new to this, but also so ready to help others understand that they're not alone and while on that journey herself. And she said something that stuck with me, which is that I want to love this body that God created as I am right now. And I think we all can relate to that, whether we live with these conditions or not. We're constantly trying to get to this place of accepting and loving ourselves as we are in this moment and taking care of ourselves. So Tamara, I loved that, and I loved getting to meet you, and I'm so excited you're with us tonight. So if you'd like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey thus far, we'd love to hear it.
Thank you. I feel very blessed being with all of you, and I might get a little weepy. I just feel so just overwhelmed to be in a community, that is positive and moving forward. So just thank you very much. Yeah, so I'm 64 years old, and I could look back over my life and see the different stages. And I was mentioning earlier to Sarah that, had I known the stages, or had I known the different things to look for, or the misdiagnosis, my whole life, and when I was just a little girl, there was a period actually when I was really little where I was very, very thin, and my parents and grandparents used to pay me to gain weight. So I feel like that whole body image started really young, even though it had to do with the thinness. I looked very malnourished when I was little. And then I hit puberty, and I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, so there was a lot of the girls wearing dittos. Do you remember ditto pants in high school? And so puberty hit, and I could never wear those really cute pants, because I had that big bottom. and I remember I was like on the spirit team. In those days, they used to have you weigh in to be able to perform at a football game. And so if you didn't make weight, that meant that you had to go sit in the stands and wear your day uniform, and everybody would know that you didn't make weight. And that was an embarrassment that I never, ever wanted to have. And so I ended up, let's see, it's asking me something. So I ended up at that point, using diuretics and, just doing horrible things in my body to lose those few little pounds the next day. So fast forward in my 20s, I had some traumas, and it's proven now that stress, also is very related to lipedema and, the swelling and the pain. And, like many of you, we tried everything, and I did a lot of crazy diets, from eating toast and grapefruit and starving myself to just, shakes and bars, and I'd lose lots of weight, and then I'd come back and gain it all back as soon as I was off of the program. And, but I never fully lost the bottom and the thighs and the hips. And so I just thought, well, I'm just a big girl, I must take after my dad's side of the family or something. So, 40s went on, 40s and 50s, went into menopause, and that completely changed everything. I noticed that no matter what I did, my thighs just got bigger and bigger. And I started feeling like maybe it was just me, maybe I was undisciplined, maybe I was lazy, or, all those things that people say to you over the years, if only you'd lose weight, if only you'd lose weight, you could have any guy you wanted. If only you lose weight, you could this and this and this, what's wrong? Why can't you do this? And then the doctors, the misdiagnosis with the, fibromyalgia. I really believe this was lipedema, that lipedema, that they just didn't know, what it was. And so it wasn't until recently I met, I didn't meet her personally, but you kind of scroll on Facebook, and there's a video came up, and it was Shaban from Lipedema Simplified. And she was talking about how sometimes women with lipedema have really bad pain from a blood pressure cuff, the cuff. And it's excruciating for me, when they do that. And she was explaining that not everybody has that kind of pain. And it really got my attention. And I was like, what? And so somehow I signed up, and I started getting emails from Lipedema Simplified, and I was watching some videos. And then there was an offer for like a 3-day online conference about a month ago. And so I did that, and I just learned so much, and so much, and everything started clicking, and I was just like, wow, this has to be what I'm dealing with. So I went to a vein doctor in my town. And of course, as you know, nobody really knows about this, and nobody really talks about it. And I was very frustrated. I had met with a nurse practitioner before I could see the doctor. And she kept telling me, well, you're saying it wrong. I kept saying, I believe I have lipedema, and I want to get a pump. And she says, well, you're saying it wrong. And she just kept pressing me that it was lymphedema. And I said, no, it's lipedema. I know I have it. I've done a lot of research. And then she looked at me and she says, well, you don't have anything. You're just fat. And I was just like, wow, and at that point, I'm a pretty kind-hearted person. And so at that point I said, can you just do me a favor? Can you go outside to your computer, and could you just Google it? And I know what I'm talking about. I know that there's many other women just like me who are probably misdiagnosed, and, just humor me and go look it up. So she did. And she came back with the doctor, and neither one of them said, wow, we learned something new, or gosh, I'm sorry. It was nothing, just stone. And she said, what do you want? And I said, well, I want a pump. And then she said, well, we're not going to give you any ultrasounds or anything. You don't have lymphedema, then you can only get the pump if you have lymphedema, and blah, blah, blah. So she basically just sat there and told me how to work the system. And so when I came home, I told my husband, I said, this isn't good enough. You know, I don't mind educating and help educating clinicians, but this wasn't right, you know, and I didn't want to be treated like that. And I wanted to be treated, you know, and somebody to hear me. And so I went to the Lipedema Simplified website, and they have a directory of all of the doctors that can diagnose for lipedema. So I ended up having to drive. Well, I don't even drive. My legs are like concrete, and they've been that way for several years. And my mobility is really bad, and I have to use a walker. So my husband had to drive me 3 hours away, and saw this doctor. I was there for 3 hours. They totally listened to me, and they did the ultrasounds, and you know, gave me the diagnosis, feeling my tissue and everything, and gave me the diagnosis. And I had pictures of how my feet were very swollen, and I had to wrap them and all of those sort of things. And so she said, yes, you definitely have the lipedema and lymphedema. So when I got home, this is a part that I just really want to share that is my heart's desire. When I got home from her, I felt very relieved, as many of us do, that we have, I don't want to say that we have it, but we know it's not our fault, right? And that was so like overwhelming to me. You know, it was very confirming and empowering. And so I've always had a voice. You know, I was a life purpose coach for a while, and I was a motivational speaker. And I just thought, you know, I want to have a voice in this, you know, and so I really am learning. I just am researching and learning. And so I told my husband, I said, I'm going to start a blog, and I want to start speaking, and I want to have gatherings and support groups for women. And I want to be an advocate for this. And I don't want any other woman to be treated like I was at that vein doctor here in town. And so I started my blog. I'm a faith-based person. And so I prayed through it, and I felt like the Lord was saying beautifully curved. And so as I started thinking about that, I was thinking about my own body, you know, and we have our bumps and nodules and, you know, all those different things. But I want to be able to accept my body instead of feeling like my body betrayed me. And I want to be able to help other women get the resources they need, but also to fall in love with their body as it is now. And so I started trying to embrace, I call my bumps my baubles. You know, if you think about wearing pretty jewelry, we have all of our baubles. And so I started thinking about my bumps as being my baubles. They're going to be my accessories. They're my body bling. And you know, I bought some leggings, which is really out of my comfort zone. I haven't worn leggings since the 80s. And, you know, I'm trying to learn to wear those outside of the house. And, you know, when I'm not around other people, it's, you know, when I'm around people I don't know, it's not so bad. But I went to lunch today and I couldn't wear them. So in my blog, I'm planning on sharing my story, and I did write one blog post so far, but it's just really about, you know, coming to terms with this is who I am. God created this body, not be hating my body, and just being vulnerable and raw, you know, and being able to share and build community, and helping women not to say my flaws, or, you know, they're your bubbles, you know. And so that's just my heart. And so if you're so inclined, you know, you could share my blog, and I would love to have you guys follow along with my journey. If you'd like to add, you know, things in the comments, I know that other people would be very touched, you know, and that they would learn as well. And yeah, so that's kind of where I am. I'm in the process right now. I've been talking to my doctor about doing radio frequency vein ablation for my veins. So I don't know if any of you have any experience with that. I'm kind of in the research mode on that one. I'm supposed to do that next month, but 25% of fixing it so I have less fatigue and the leg pain. So it feels like, well, 25% is 25%, but it's quite intensive, it looks like. So I'm just not really sure if that's what I want to do. But that's kind of where I am. I'm just trying to be positive and not be overwhelmed and learn a lot and just be in community. Oh, and one last thing. Lipedema Simplified is offering, we're doing gatherings all across the nation. So you can find your gathering for lipedema awareness. And they're called heart-to-heart gatherings, and we're just gathering together and sharing stories and encouraging each other. And Malik is coming from Lymphedema to one of my gatherings, and then I have a lady that's bringing some clothing, you know, because we all want to look pretty. And yeah, so be sure and take a look at Lipedema Simplified and find your gathering. Hopefully there'll be one close by. And if there isn't, they're also doing a couple virtuals. So
Thank you so much, Tamara.
you're
for your
welcome.
vulnerability and your willingness to share. I think your story resonated with so many in the audience. We had Debrina said, when you were talking about your diagnosis experience and your quest, she said, this was my experience too. She told me that I didn't look like any of those images. LOL, I didn't get diagnosed until later. It was awful. And then R. Stadgy says to Tamara, it is so nice to finally feel validated. My motto is always to trust your instincts. You know your body that better than anyone. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And they also said that they're learning that each of us are on our own personal journey. No two journeys are the same, which is true. And I think, and we say this before too, that we have the shared experience of living with these conditions, but within that, our experiences are so unique, and we can kind of glean little nuggets of wisdom and insight and support from hearing each other when we come together like this each month or at events like the heart-to-heart circles. So we're just, it's so magical every time we get to do this. So really appreciate that. And I've been dropping links in the chat as Tamara was talking, so be sure to check those out, and they'll also be in the replay email. But yeah, we're so grateful for your vulnerability.
Oh, my friend Gloria is on. She's my friend that I had lunch with that I told you about earlier.
We glad you made it, Gloria.
At the heart-to-heart. Yeah.
Oh,
thank you.
Yeah. Well, on the topic too of advocating for yourself, we have probably one of, I would probably call her a professional patient, because you are literally a professional patient at hospitals too, Sarah Bramblette, and you're a huge advocate in the world of lymphedema and lipedema and obesity. And we are just so grateful to have you here to share insights. So I'm going to put you on the spot now. You shared some really great stuff before we went live too, and I'm hoping you could sort of double back on that and share with the group.
Well, and I do just want to say, like, so the initials after my name is for Masters of Science Health Law, because I also did degree in it. And I really feel like the combination of that education and the patient perspective is really helpful. And like, even with the implementation of the Lymphedema Treatment Act, there was just some things that I knew as a patient experience that I could speak to. Like, we had a conversation even regarding searching, like CMS is working on a database to make DME providers searchable for lymphedema products. And I've also used that as a Medicare patient, so I could get that perspective of, okay, this is how you typically break things down. So what would be the criteria? You know, it was just a helpful perspective. But I do want to say, and Alexa, I hope you have this link ready. And I don't know, because I can't remember the timing of things last month. So you may have already shared it with your audience. But something Karen mentioned was, you know, a lot more people know about lymphedema, and I've seen a lot more people know about lipedema. But what is lacking is that set of doctors to specialize in it. As Tamara mentioned, she was sent to a vein doctor. I know many people are. And that vein doctor obviously wasn't knowledgeable about it. I personally was diagnosed with lymphedema by an OBGYN. She didn't necessarily like officially diagnose me. She asked me, "What are they doing for your lymphedema?" And I was like, "My what?" Like I knew there was something wrong, but I had a primary care doctor who had said nothing. I once had a wound on my leg, and the primary care doctor sent me to a general surgeon to see if I needed it like surgically, like debrided or what I needed for it. And even he didn't know. Like, anyone looks me up, this is the black and white picture of my legs from 2001, where like my legs are hanging over to the ground. And she did say the primary care doctor did say like it's water in your legs, but again, she just said it's due to your weight. So I feel like even when doctors might know something, they don't always know who to refer you to. And I've actually had other because of my advocacy in both communities, I've had obesity medicine doctors say, I have a patient who I think has this. Where can I send her? And I think I appreciate I guess the acknowledgement that I know things, but I'm like, they're coming to a patient, and I know patients are powerful. And I felt it at FDRS in April. Like I really feel like the patients are leading the way in these communities, both the lymphedema and the lipedema community. But then sometimes it's frustrating that the patients are leading the way in these communities. So that comes back to the link I want you to drop is the NHI Commission for Lymphatics, and
Yeah.
they're taking comments until the end of the month, until June 8th or 28th, sorry, June 28th, because the 8th is in the end of the month. They are taking, there are requests for information, and anyone can submit. And I believe part of it is mentioned about having a specialty for lymphatic diseases. I think it's more than needed. In the obesity space, there's a board certification in obesity medicine, so a doctor can, study a course, take a test, and be certified in. I think we need something similar for lymphatics. And then I mean, I know there's several directories that exist, but I think it really will help in getting a uniform understanding and a uniform place to refer patients to get help. So um, I don't even know like what else to mention. My story's different than Tamara's, where I was diagnosed in my 20s, and I was first diagnosed with lymphedema. I was getting help for that, and I part of that was, of course, to they always say like maintain a more normal weight when you're already way over that normal. That's kind of hard to do, but I had bariatric surgery. It was after the bariatric surgery that I started, you could really tell the lipedema was there because I was losing more weight above the waist. When I moved to Miami, Florida, I saw a specialist here, and he like instantly said it. I kind of knew I had it beforehand because, and this is really going to make me sound old. So when I was having bariatric surgery and I first got diagnosed with lymphedema, I went onto Yahoo groups. So I was a member of a lymphedema Yahoo group. And there was someone else who I'm still friends with her to this day, who was part of the lymphedema Yahoo group and was talking about lipedema. And I think when she was talking about her ankles and like the ankle cuff, I think that's what made me say, "Oh yeah, I've got that. That sounds familiar." So when I got the diagnosis, I wasn't surprised. And part of the conversation I was having with Tamara before here was like, is it better to get diagnosed? Like I got diagnosed early in my life, but it was still a late stage for me. I was still like way past the stage 4. So better to know earlier than later. But of course, even if you knew 20 years ago, Tamara, I'll tell you now, there wasn't what we have now. Like it really wouldn't. Like, that question on social media, like if you could go back in time and meet your 13-year-old self, what would you tell them? And I'm like, sure, I could tell her like you have lymphedema, but what was she gonna do? Like what you like and you know? Um so it's but as Tamara mentioned, I was saying like I felt like it stole my life. It kind of I got some education, but I wasn't, I had discrimination in the job place. um, I've struggled to just maintain being not healthy enough, but physically enduring a full, schedule. Like even, I mean, currently do stuff from home, but yesterday I was up all day. Today I'm up and I'm like working from home, and it's still exhausting to need to be like awake and alert for this many hours. So, but I feel like I have certainly made it the best possible thing I could make. There's part of me that wishes this, we didn't have to do this. We're already managing a chronic condition. We shouldn't have to be advocating for ourselves as much, but um, we have to. And I can remember, when the doctor asked me like, you know, what are they doing for your lymphedema? I was like, please send me somewhere, because I had been actually pushing back to my doctor. And when I actually went to Ohio State, got diagnosed, they, put a prescription in for a compression pump. And um, when I went back to my doctor, like, great news, I have lymphedema. I'm going to get a pump. I'm going to get help. Thinking she didn't know what it was at all. She actually said, oh, I know what lymphedema is. I have patients that have it in their arms, and those pumps are really uncomfortable. And I thought, do you think legs like this are comfortable? Like, so that was probably the moment I knew doctors don't know everything. And I mean, and I really had to be my own advocate. And if I didn't like a doctor, switch, like I just really, I only saw her for about, actually, I saw her partner for a little bit, but I eventually moved. I went away to graduate school. And so I kind of got away from that. But I did have to say, please send me to physical therapy so I can get in the pool. Like she blamed it on my weight, but then she gave me nothing to even help my weight. So if it wasn't for the lymphedema doctor helping me get the pump and telling me what to look for, and then me asking, like, send me to physical therapy so I can get in the pool and do walking and stuff, then I wouldn't have had anything. Like, I felt like I had to give the ideas. Um, and I mean, it's, um, I mean, it's been more than half my life at this point. So it was 2001. And so it's been 23 years, and it is, oh gosh, things are so much better. There are so many more resources now, but it's still frustrating that there's not more being done. And so I'm hopeful with the new commission and the new coverage and everything that we will um, improve things for patients overall.
You said before we went live too, when Tamara mentioned she was diagnosed simultaneously with lymphedema and lipedema, you said congratulations. And honestly, I get that. I understand that reaction, because even though it's this bittersweet moment of like, oh my God, I have what? And I have to do what for the rest of my life to manage it? It's also like, okay, I have a word for it. I have something I can search, and I can find other people. I can find resources. So it's sort of like a key that opens a lock to a bunch of other doors, but at
Yes.
least you have that first key.
And I know it's frustrating, because I see on Facebook a lot with, even Tamara was being told, you're saying it wrong. It's lymphedema, not lymphedema. So it's frustrating that um, people don't know the difference. But then again, right now the treatments are pretty much the same. But what's frustrating with that is, if you're told you have lymphedema, just like, so a patient with lipedema, first of all, we're told it's just obesity. So then you're trying to manage it through lifestyle changes, and that's not helping. So you feel like, what's going on? Then you're told, oh, it's lymphedema. And you're like, oh, great, it's lymphedema. Let me go get lymphedema treatment. Well, depending on what level of lymphedema you have, the compression isn't going to get everything, down. It's going to have a little bit of proof. So then that's like strike two, like the second thing you've tried and you're not getting help. So until you really get that diagnosis of lipedema and you understand, okay, this is what it is, and it's going to, compression therapy and stuff is going to improve it. It's going to help, not progress, but it's not going to get rid of it all. And so it's kind of I think I wrote about this one time. It's kind of like a relief to finally know what it is. And then you're just kind of like, oh crap, but what can I actually do? It's like, usually you get a diagnosis and you get treatments, and it like really improves it. And I mean, depending on where you are in the stage, it does improve. I mean, I have to say, overall, my legs are so much better than they were when I was initially diagnosed with lymphedema. But like my thighs and stuff where the lipedema are, my arms, I mean, I don't know if you can, like, it's, compression is going to reduce the swelling, but it's not going to get rid of all that. And even with surgery options right now, there's a limit to what you can safely remove. So that's not going to reduce everything either. So we really do have to get the knowledge out there so people are diagnosed earlier. And I know with I actually have spoken with people who work in the CDC childhood obesity. And every time I meet someone who works in pediatric obesity, I say, do you know about lipedema? Because it's so important if you're screening a child, especially a adolescent, girl, that you know to properly understand this condition so you could guide her well and not, guide her into treatments that aren't going to be helpful, or if, you need to improve overall other health aspects, but just understand like the weight might not change. So, and I'm really relieved when they say, yes, we do know. And I'm like, oh, good. So, I think it's very important.
Yeah. And there's tons of people chiming in the chat about the different ways that they've faced disbelief from doctors about their lymphedema or their lymphedema, especially saying because lymphedema is so often correlated with cancer, specifically breast cancer. So those of us who don't have it from that, it's so hard to get taken seriously even with that. We are getting time has flown, and I told everybody before we went live, this hour goes by real fast, and it is, and there's so many great questions coming in, specifically about there's a question about Ozempic that I know some people in the panel would like to talk about. Real quick before we get to that, is there any advice for people that are at a higher weight, like how to help manage their condition, getting garments on and off, or things like that? It can be really difficult when mobility is more limited. Is there anything for the audience or even resources to help point in the right direction?
Well, definitely, you want to get with a good lymphedema therapist who can tailor a compression program to you. I think that for people that have mobility issues and more body mass, pumps are a gift from God because they're easy to get into and they provide both compression and decongestion. I would say that probably the easiest and most versatile compression garments that I use with people of size, both people who are obese as well as people with lipedema. And by the way, Sarah, thank you for making the point that obesity and lipedema are not the same, but they often go together. Many people with lipedema also have obesity, but just because you have lipedema doesn't mean you're obese. There are a lot of very, very thin people with lipedema as well as people of size. So I have found that in my practice, using Velcro wrap garments, using cellulite textured elastic garments, using the Fast and Go, there's a number of compressions that in general are easier to get on and more adjustable and more comfortable to wear. And the biggest headache that women with lipedema have with compression is that as Sarah pointed out, your limbs are irregularly sized. They are not standard size at all. And so compression garments tend to migrate. And I just saw in the chat, Patricia mentioned the reduction kit, which is a great tool because you can customize it to people's bodies and shape it just perfectly. So that's my 2 cents as a lymphedema therapist in terms of compression. You gotta customize.
I'm just going to chime in because, and that's what I put. We need custom fitted. I know I see a lot of people who ask questions about compression because they are getting, I know BioFit is a common one that people wear. And if your shape is more uniform shape, they do go into larger sizes. But I know like my shape and especially my calves are not. But I will also say for compression garments, something that I was turned on to very early in getting garments is the capri knee-high combination. So we normally need full garments. There's no way I'd be able to put compression with this level of compression class 3 on with pantyhose because your legs have to be like, I put my compression on one leg up on the bed, put it on, So when it was recommended to get knee highs and then a capri so that I had full lower body compression, that was great. That was wonderful. And I know, Karen, close your ears. But then on the days that maybe I don't want to wear the capri, I could still have the knee highs on. That, I mean, my lower legs are the worst for lymphedema. So it kind of gives me that flexibility. And maybe it's not best to not have the upper, but it's still better to at least have the knee highs if I'm not going to put everything on. So with that and with lipedema, so of course, as most know, I helped get the Lymphedema Treatment Act passed. And thankfully it's body areas. So you're going to get what you need for body areas. So if you need it for legs and abdomen, arms, chest, it's body area. And also they acknowledge the needs of the patient to don and doff the garment. So if you say, I need this combination because I'm not able to put on a pantyhose, they'll cover those 3 pieces or whatever pieces you need. However, lipedema still doesn't have an ICD-10 code. So I know a lot of people felt left out of the bill because it doesn't have a diagnosis of lipedema, but we can't put a diagnosis of lipedema when an actual code for ICD-10 doesn't work. If you have secondary lymphedema like I do, though, there's a code for secondary lymphedema, and that's what would be used. But I know there's doctors, a team working on getting that ICD-10 code. There's language in that treatment act that says the secretary of HHS, and I know I'm going deep in the weeds. People are going to be like, what? But anyways, just long story short, when we get the codes for lipedema, we don't have to have another bill passed in Congress. There's a way for CMS just to update the diagnosis for what the coverage is for. So
Thank you. And feel free, Sarah, to drop any links related to that in the chat. We're gonna real quick pivot to a super quick overview, and we'll promise we'll talk more about this next month. And I'm also gonna drop a link in the chat to a Lipedema Patient Roundtable earlier this year on this very topic that was phenomenal. But Karen's gonna talk to us real quick, like a 30-second overview of Ozempic and lipedema. And we have some people on the panel too that can talk a little bit about those medications and the effects on their lymphedema too. And then we're going to do the grounding exercise with Karen. So take it away, Karen.
Okay, well, first off, I'm not a doctor and I don't prescribe medications, but I am aware of Ozempic because it is just such a hot topic. And it's a medication that is FDA approved to treat diabetes. And it's a weekly injection. It helps lower blood sugar. It helps the pancreas make more insulin, and it slows the emptying of the stomach so people feel full longer and eat less. Ozempic has not been FDA approved for weight loss, but a lot of people are using it for that. So it's important to remember, though, that with lipedema, that the lipedema fat is different from the regular fat. And so if a woman has both lipedema and obesity, the Ozempic will work on the obese fat, but it will not target the lipedema fat. So I know that there are a lot of women in the lipedema community that are excited about Ozempic because I think that when you lower body mass overall, it helps mobility, it helps swelling, it helps a lot of things. So that's my 2 cents on Ozempic, and there's a lot of buzz about it.
I just want to mention, so Karen mentioned, so Ozempic is not FDA approved for weight management. However, it's the base medication is semaglutide, and the version that you might have heard more recently of Wegovy is FDA approved for weight management. And then the other 2 GLP-1s, there is Mounjaro, that is, I think it's trizipatide is the name, and it is for diabetes. And then Zepbound just came out last December, and that is Mounjaro's version for weight management. Wegovy has also been indicated for cardiovascular risk. And so this is where I put my lipedema hat and lymphedema hat on and put my obesity hat on. So for anyone out there who is upset if you've tried to get coverage for any of it, so I had coverage for Ozempic through Medicare up until January. They got more strict. I had it for insulin resistance. Now they're saying, you have to have type 2 diabetes for it, and Medicare, because I've been blessed with 2 medical conditions for which Medicare doesn't adequately provide coverage. So Medicare doesn't cover any type of medications for, they say weight loss. So we would argue it's not for weight loss, it's for treatment of obesity. Now we can argue it's also for cardiovascular risk. But for anyone who's tried to get coverage who can't, and what I know a lot of people might not say they have obesity, might not like that term, might say it's not a disease. I'm not going to argue with you about that. If you have a certain BMI and you would qualify for it, there is a bill in Congress that we are trying to get passed that would provide coverage for these medications. And I'll just drop that link in the box too. I think it was an FDA thing that named them differently, because I know I use Botox for things that are for medically necessary, and Botox is still the same name, whether it's for cosmetic or medically necessary procedures. So it was something with the FDA that allowed them to name Wegovy different from Ozempic, even though it's the exact same medication as the maglutide. So I feel it's a bit discriminatory, and I use that word that you have one disease, you can get it. If you have another disease, it's not covered. I don't want to. My mother developed diabetes in her 50s. I don't want to develop type 2 diabetes. And that is something that just can help, despite any lifestyle. As you get older, you're at more risk of developing that. So I would prefer not to develop that. And if I can get the treatment now to help do that and help in other ways too, then I think we should be able to. So
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Catherine.
So I'm going to tap into this in terms from a lymphedema perspective. So I actually have taken the medication, and I actually have seen a drastic difference in the overall heaviness of my left leg, which is my lymphedema limb. And I really do think it has to do with the because of the fact that I've lost the weight to go along with. So it's helped my lymphatics work, like be able to move a little bit better in a quicker time frame when using my pump or using my vibration plate or using any of the tools that I normally would use. But again, just like we say every month, just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. So you really have to talk to your physician in regards to, is this something that's worthwhile for you? So for me, not only was I overweight at the time when I went on it, I also had a heart issue. So it kind of helped with my coverage of that medication because of multiple, I want to say, Karen, I'm not sure if this is the right word, comorbidities, in terms of being able to get the medication approved. So, but again, just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So you really have to sit down with your doctor and look through the pros and cons of it to make sure that, yes, there's more pros to it than there is cons, because obviously you don't want to make things worse by going on something.
Always a good reminder that just because it works for someone else doesn't always mean it'll work for you. And Catherine always also says that lymphedema and lipedema, it's a lot of trial and error. So it's finding out what works for you and talking to your doctor, your therapist. So speaking of,
and there is some research articles. There is actually a research article about the effect of the GLP-1s on, actually, I believe it was breast cancer related lymphedema. I believe it's just a single case study, but it's probably the first article that I've actually seen related to using the word lymphedema in the title along with the GLP-1.
Oh, wow. Well, this sounds like, obviously this is a very hot topic, and I'll make a note for us to talk about this some more next month, as well as some other questions that we got in the Q&A box and the chat that we didn't get a chance to get to tonight. But I wanted to pass the baton yet again to the capable hands of Karen Ashforth. She offered to lead us through a grounding meditation tonight, a body scan and relaxation exercise. And before she does, I want to plug real quick too. I'm starting to clip Karen's lovely little exercises for us and putting them on our YouTube channel. So right now, her MLD exercise she did with us a couple months ago is on YouTube for you to watch and revisit whenever you like. So I'll drop a link for that in the chat. And I'm going to pass it over to Karen. So I hope everyone's ready to relax.
Thank you so much. I could just listen to everyone all night because we have such knowledgeable people here. And, you know, thank you so much for being here, Sarah and Tamara. It's just been delightful to have your contributions. And I want to just emphasize that if there are people who are watching this that have lipedema, that you definitely want to check out the Lipedema Roundtables, which are the third Wednesday of the month, because you get all kinds of wonderful information and resources. So the reason I chose to do this grounding meditation in honor of Lipedema Awareness Month is because when people are living with a chronic condition, it can really affect our moods and our stress levels. And so the grounding meditation is a way of doing a body scan. And oftentimes I find in my practice, a lot of my patients separate from their bodies because the bodies aren't necessarily always comfortable places to live. And so my objective is to reach out to the body and to nurture the body in ways that can help it relax, can help with pain, can help with discomfort. So this meditation has parasympathetic benefits. And to get the full benefit of this, I recommend that you get into a very comfortable position. You can stay seated or you can lay down if you want to, whatever is comfortable to you. You can keep your eyes open or you can close your eyes, whatever is comfortable to you. But I would like to start with the breath and just encourage you to do a nice long exhale. And then a good nourishing inhale. And again, some gentle, slow, nourishing breaths. And as you breathe, see if it's all right to turn your attention to the soles of your feet. And see if it's all right to use your imagination to imagine that connected to the soles of your feet are roots, like the roots of a great tree. And what if you could imagine these roots without any effort on your part, sinking down through the floor, down to the earth. Again, without trying or pushing, just like you take an anchor and throw it over the side of the ship. Just allow these roots to continue to sink deeper and deeper. And just with your imagination, see if they can go through layers of soil and rock and all the way down to the center of the earth. And I like to imagine the center of the earth as a golden, molten core of healing light. And what if your roots were hollow? Is it possible to imagine that golden healing light starting to stream effortlessly up your roots? Again, without a lot of effort or trying, just allowing it to rise like a balloon rises into the air until your roots become so full of this golden light that it starts to spill over into your feet. And see if it's all right to just imagine this light bathing over every tissue, every cell, filling your feet so full of this lovely light that it spills over into your ankles and into your lower legs. And taking another wonderful breath. Imagine this light continuing to rise from your lower legs into your knees, and spilling over into your thighs. And at this point, some of you might notice a difference between the upper and the lower parts of the body? Does one feel lighter or heavier? Does one feel warmer or cooler? Is there a sense of vibration? Do you have any sense of colors? I just encourage you to be curious about that as the light continues to bathe your feet and legs and spill over into your pelvis and your belly. And begin to bathe your intestines. And as you take another deep breath, allowing that golden light to fill your lungs and to bathe your heart. And imagine it overflowing into each of your vertebrae like a string of lights, all the way from the tail to the neck. And then flowing into your head, bathing your eyes, your ears, your nose, your teeth. And spilling out from your torso into your arms. All the way down to your hands. Until your entire body is bathed in this nourishing, healing, golden light. As you take another lovely breath, I want to encourage you to see if it's okay for your roots to double in size so that you can receive even more of this golden light. And know that your ability to receive this is only limited by your imagination. And now, I'd like to encourage you to just notice if there's a part of your body or parts of your body that feel tight or dark or painful. And see if you can allow that golden light to stream around those parts like a river goes around a pebble. And see if those parts can take in some of that healing light. As you take another breath, I want you to start to think about coming back here to this group. You can keep your eyes open or closed, but in the next minute, I want you to think about starting to open your eyes. And just notice, how is your body feeling right now compared to 10 minutes ago? Hopefully, you feel relaxed. Hopefully, you feel like you're in a place of calm. And even though we've gone through this very, very quickly, this is something that you can repeat whenever you want to. And this grounding is something that you can do anytime, anywhere. If you practice it enough, it becomes just like plugging a socket into the wall. And my favorite place to practice grounding is actually on an airplane, thousands of miles above the earth. So we're going to close this meditation. And I'm going to turn this back over to Alexa to close this meeting.
Thank you so much, Karen, for walking us through that. That was really beautiful imagery, especially the light coming through. It reminded me of this quote from the poet Rumi, where he says, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." And I feel that a lot about the relationship to my own lymphedema. it is a wound, but it's also brought so much light in. And so your meditation, your imagery was a nice complement to that. So everybody's probably feeling a little relaxed and sleepy and lovely. So we're going to let everyone go for the evening. But I wanted to thank our special guests, Sarah and Tamara, for being with us tonight, and our panelists too. I know that some of them didn't get a chance to talk tonight, but we appreciate their presence being here and their supportive presence. And we'll all be here again next month, July 9th. So if you're interested in learning more about lipedema, I put some links in the chat. We have 2 events coming up this week. There's a webinar with Dr. Karen Herbst called Things You May Not Have Known About Lipedema. And also the Lipedema Patient Roundtable is next week on Wednesday evening. The recordings for both of those and for tonight will be available on our respective YouTube channels after the fact too. So if you can't make it live, you can always catch them at your convenience later. So we are here every second Tuesday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Like we just said, if you can't make it live, we encourage you to still register. So you'll get the emails afterwards with the recording and all of the links. So you will get those, so don't worry. And again, we just appreciate you being here. We hope you learned something tonight. If you didn't know much about lipedema, and maybe you feel empowered to pursue your own diagnosis if you're wondering if you might have lipedema. And anybody have any closing thoughts before we end out? I know we're already at 9:01 Eastern Time, but if anybody has anything they'd like to say before we end, speak now. Go ahead, Amanda. I see you. I'm unmuting. Or no? Oh, you weren't? Okay. Never mind. She's just taking out her iPhone. All right, everybody. I guess we'll just close out. So thanks again. It's always so hard to say goodbye. I'm terrible at ending phone calls and roundtables, but we'll see you next month. Thank you so much and have a great evening. Bye, everyone.